Welcome to the Painter's Business Podcast with Stephanie Stover. Let's roll. Welcome to the Painter's Business Podcast, the show for growth-minded painting company owners who want to scale, profit, and dominate their markets. I'm your host, Stephanie Stover, and every week we bring you zero-flop strategies, proven tactics, and behind-the-scenes insights from real business owners and experts who are getting it done in the field. And here's the deal. Every single episode gives you at least one practical, no BS action that you can take today to grow your business. Whether you want more residential leads, safer crews, or bigger commercial contracts, this is where painters come to grow. Let's roll. Today I'm joined by Tila Lee, owner of Pretty in Paint. Pretty in Paint has been showcased in Homes and Gardens, Reader's Digest, Living, etc., and more. Tila, welcome to the show.
Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So tell me about the origin story of Pretty in Paint. What was the light bulb moment for you?
Yeah, so I have been in the industry for 15 years. I started as a franchise for one of the student painting companies. And when I left that, I was actually so burnt out that I sold all my gear and I spent a little bit of time in some other franchises doing sales and whatnot. And it was just so terrible, that experience being in those businesses, just how they were doing things, the disorganization, just how everything was approached. And I said to myself, like, I can do this better. I can do this better. And beyond that, I would like this to be a vehicle for how we can get other women into the industry to also do it better. We just have a different angle of doing things than I find the typical men do. So when I started Pretty in Paint, for the first couple years, I was just doing like the solopreneur kind of thing. So I was like, I can make a lot of money if I just do the painting myself this time. Did that for a while, but I always had this vision for it to be something bigger, right? So I was bringing women into the company. After a while, we were just rolling and growing that way. I explored franchising because that's the typical way that people go in this industry. And it just wasn't really the right fit for women. So what I ended up building was this online community, an education hub so that we can come in and do things differently, do things our way.
Awesome. Are you still painting?
So I paint occasionally because I still have a long list of people that really, really want me to paint in different areas. I started in Calgary in Canada. I live now primarily in the States. I'm in Idaho, but we're relocating to Vegas. I do
Fun.
painting as I'm creating videos still for the content. So just depends.
So tell me a bit more about Pretty in Paint. How long has Pretty in Paint been in business? How many clients do you have, etc.?
Yeah, so Pretty in Paint originally was started in 2015. And it was just a painting company for, I would say, the first like 8 years. And then I started to grow into this, how are we helping women within the last couple of years? And really only launched things within the last month or two. And my background has been historically painting and old school business tactics. So I launched the program and I'm still really figuring out how to get the digital marketing nailed down so that we're reaching everyone outside of the community. I'm used to doing tactics where we're really owning neighborhoods and owning cities. And so I've been learning all of the ways that people now these days are reaching people on a further scale.
With this episode, we want to talk about turning bias into leverage for bigger wins. What's the most common bias as a woman that you've faced in the painting industry?
The most common bias, I would say, is just being a woman. Is that allowed to say? It's just, it can be such a shock to people that it is a woman. So I have had many calls where the people call in, they're like, "Hey, yeah, I need some painting done." And I'm like, "Yep, okay, cool. What's up?" And they're like, "Well, is the owner there?" And I'm like, "Yep, this is the owner." They're like, "Oh, he's not available." "No, this is she." Um, we have, a lot of times people are pretty cool about it, actually. We live in a world that's more accepting now, but there is always that odd person, like on job sites, we would encounter like other trades or, sometimes something that comes to mind just out of the top of my head is one site in particular we had. I don't know if it was another trade or just like a guy walking by off the street or like a friend of the client or something. And he was in there trying to mansplain to us what we needed to do to paint this door. And I always say to my girls, like, you can't let that get into your head. They're
Hmm.
not, they, it's not about you, it's about the situation for them. So what I recommend is we meet them with the same kind of energy. You throw out some zingers to them. A lot of the times these guys, even with the guys, they're just kind of in the mode of like busting each other's balls or whatever, right? So it's not even necessarily about you being a woman or anything like that. Just have to come in and meet them with the same kind of energy.
How does that affect the person that initiated the dialogue?
The dialogue. So in this particular situation that came to my head, we just kept on going because we were there, we were hired, the customer knew who we were. This man eventually just kind of wore himself out and left. And meanwhile, like I wish I could remember what I said to this guy, but whatever it was went down in history with the ladies that I had working on this site. They were like, "Oh man, you said this and you did that and he just did this." And like, yeah, hopefully we made an impact on, changing his worldview.
Hmm. And what do you think that worldview is? Like, what are the thoughts that go through people's minds typically when they see a female painter?
Yeah, so I would have to say this was a few years ago, and I would have to say this man was probably in his 60s or 70s, right? So when he was growing up and becoming the person he is today, it just wasn't as common for him to see people like that and him to encounter people like that. And so I just think the longer that we're in the industry and we're creating visibility for ourselves and we're creating that educational piece and we're reacting in a way that is not losing our shit to these people, but just, meeting them, educating them, being firm with our stance, and just demonstrating that we are doing as good of a job or better in a lot of cases than what they are used to. And
Mhm.
I do know, maybe not that person in particular, but I know there are some older men who have grown up around the same kind of stuff and who we are changing their mind. Where they're like, okay, I see these girls, I see what they're doing. They're actually doing quality work. Their customers are very happy. Yeah, so I think just visibility is huge.
Awesome. So, how did you first come to realize that you could flip this bias and turn it into an advantage?
I think the biggest thing for me again was when I started Pretty in Paint, I had spent time in so many other businesses at that point that I really saw the bro culture in these other franchises and just I call it like the toxic growth syndrome almost, like just the way that they would go and it's all about the numbers. It's all about the grind. It's all about this and then that. And that's great. You can definitely and you should definitely care about your numbers and you should have goals, but we just go about growing in a different way. So we're looking at more so taking care of the people, whether it's the customers, whether it's the staff, we're more so about educating. So I did so much sales training that was like, overcoming objections and asking for the sale and just going for the kill. What I teach my girls now is a respect model, is RESPECT. And we're all about building rapport with them, educating them, just focusing on communication, which so many other people are lacking.
When somebody is skeptical of you or of your business, how do you turn that skepticism quickly into trust?
I just focus on education again. So most of the time, if they've come to a lady they know that they're with a lady already just because of the branding. Maybe they've looked at the site and they see there's a woman owner. So a lot of the time they're already a little bit open to the idea. But if they're skeptical, again, it's just about that education piece. So, hey, what was your experience like before? Why did you feel that way? What can we do differently? Well, this is what we do. So let's make sure we're matching those needs to those wants. And we're just demonstrating to you why we can do this and paint the picture how it's going to roll out.
Okay. And what mistakes would you recommend women avoid when trying to prove themselves in the industry?
I'm a part of a lot of like groups online, and I see a lot of women come through and they have had a negative experience and they're taking it too personally,
Mm,
right? So they're like, this guy said that this is atrocious, this is not acceptable, blah, blah, blah. And I agree with you 100%. I agree. But again, we have to match their energy to some extent, throw it right back at them. If they're thrown out like a backhanded insult, well, how does your wife feel about when you do this? Or, how does it feel like when you do that? Or like, oh, well, how about your touch up over there? Why don't you go take care of that one? That kind of thing.
so do you have a story where another story where bias worked in your favor and led to a really big win?
I'd say just the success of my company as it was a painting company. So I just really leaned hard. We still have the same branding, Pretty in Paint, because I knew when I started that it would let customers know, but it would also let women know. So regardless of your stance on pink, it is like a more female identifying color. And I just think like the way that it's rolled out has been such a big win. We had a lot of like cult like following where I was in Calgary. Like we would get lots of people. Referrals was the primary source. And like there would be lots of people that called me up and just like, hey, my friend didn't even use you, but they heard such amazing things that we want a quote from you.
Hmm.
Just taking that business, it's now referral based. So I have providers that take care of the work for me that I have strong trust in. And then just, yeah, turning it into what it is now. I think it is just such a win for flipping the script. So we're aiming to help every woman that is looking to either start her business in painting or grow her business in painting. I think Pretty in Paint has been a huge win for increasing visibility and awareness.
Awesome. So it sounds like you're doing pretty well. What would you say is your biggest challenge in your business right now?
For me right now, it's just learning that digital marketing piece. So I launched the program and I just recently finished like all the funnels. So now it's just about driving traffic.
Mm,
I've applied the same tactics. So I would consider myself like an SEO expert. And that was how we got like the number 2 source of business for painting leads in Calgary. Applied that same logic to the site as it is now for the new direction. And so it's just a matter of time there before that kind of gets us onto the Google search console and stuff as well.
awesome.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to women who are entering male dominated trades today?
The advice I would say is again, don't take things personally. It's not about you necessarily. If you handle it the right way, you can be part of the change that helps not this one man, but men as a whole and society as a whole see us differently.
Hmm. And last question, what is the mindset shift that turns bias from a burden into leverage?
The mindset shift that turns it from a burden into leverage. I don't know if I ever saw it as a burden. So that's one thing I will say, but I over the years I can see how it turns how it plays a factor, of course. So I never had to necessarily overcome that personally. The mindset shift for other I think would just be like having the light bulb moment, right? Like when they see that the women are not only bringing it, but they're possibly bringing it better.
Before we hop off, do you have any last comments or thoughts that you would like to leave listeners with?
I would just say that like a number one key thing that I teach to my women is that we're not only in the business of painting, we're really in the business of setting and maintaining expectations. So whether that is with your clients or with your staff, it's all about information, communication, and education. So we're painting the picture for how things are going to roll out. We're letting you know what's your experience been like with trades before? What does it look like when you've had painting done? Okay, well, it should or shouldn't look like that. And this is how it'll look like with us. And that's the same thing for the staff. What are you looking for? This is how it's going to look when you come and work for us. And just making sure that we're maintaining all of those expectations or communicating when they're changing and people need to be aware.
I love it. Fantastic. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can find Tila at www.goprettyinpaint.com or follow her on her socials at Pretty in Paint. Thank you very much. See you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. This is the Painter's Business Podcast with Stephanie Stover.